Yeah, here we are. We're going to do our code puzzle. And I've made a very simple kind of key entry system. This isn't necessarily that you have to have a four key system. And don't feel like this is necessarily the way you have to do it. It's just convenient for me because I don't want to make more sprites. If you want to have a keypad with like 0 to 9, that's great. You can totally do that. Either way, it's the same sort of thing. So I'm going to show you first of all how to make these sort of clickable and how do we record the order in which we've clicked. And then I want to figure out how do you make it so that that order, when you get the right order, how does that unlock something? How does that make something happen? So here's the story. I'm gonna first of all make these buttons, these things, this red, green, blue, yellow stuff. I'm gonna turn them into buttons. So what I'm going to do is when I click on them, they're going to add something to the list. In my case, I'm going to add the color. Like I'll add green when I click the green to a list. It's not the same as your inventory though. So I'm actually going to make a new list. I'm going to zoom in here so everyone can see. So I'm going to make a new list. I'm going to call it code. And this list will keep track of the order of the buttons that you've clicked. That's the whole idea behind this list. Make it for all sprites. Because other sprites might need to see it. And there we go. We get all those awesome code, those blocks unlocked. You can show this if you want to, or you can hide it. It doesn't really matter. It's your choice if you want to show this. I am going to show it right now while I'm programming it to see if it's working and to show you how it works. But don't think of that as, oh, Mr. Pelche has it shown. I guess I have to show it too. It's optional. You decide for the visual of your game if it's nice to have it on or not. So here we go. I'm going to go program in. When I click on the different buttons, it's going to add to that list. You might already have an idea of how to do that. For the red button, for example, I'm just going to grab a trigger of when this sprite is clicked. I'm just going to go to the data and look for the add block. Just like when you pick something up in this game, like you add the key to the inventory or the screwdriver or whatever. Well, we're going to add, in this case, this is the red button, right? So I'm just going to add R to code. Actually, is that good? R, G, B, Y? Yeah, I can do that. So I'll add R to code. And you know what? I would recommend, I don't do a good job in demonstrating this, but I want to show you how I program when I'm doing these things. Sometimes when I demonstrate, I just show you, here's all the things to do, and they just magically all work by the time I'm done. That's probably because I've done it before, and if you're doing it for the first time, it's not going to work the first time, probably. And so one thing to do is just, when you do a thing, any small little thing, test that thing right away and make sure it works before you move on. If you try and code everything at once, and you have a problem, you might have many problems, and it's hard to figure that out at that point. So I'm going to try this right now. I'm going to click R. I'm going to hit the red. I expect to see R show up in the code. Do I? Hey, there it is. Yeah, I put an R as the first thing. If I click another red, it puts another R in there. So I've done RR so far. So I'm just going to add the same kind of thing for the green, the yellow, and the blue. Watch this. If you don't know about this, oh man, check it out. You can just drag and drop this little script. Bam, bam, bam. Of course, I had to modify, right? This is green, so I don't want to add R. I want to add G. And by the way, this could be adding numbers. You could be adding 1, 2, 3 if you have like a number pad. You could be adding, maybe you have to click on the order of, I don't know. I don't have good examples. The order of the planets in the correct order from beginning to end of the solar system, or I don't know. You could do all sorts of different things. But I'm just gonna go ahead and change these so they add the right letters. And let's check it out. Press green. Hey, it adds a G. Blue adds a B. Yellow adds a Y. So I know it's working. I know that this is successful. So that's all it is. It's really just this script in those buttons. Right there, just adding to code. So those buttons are pretty boring. I guess I should just mention that also make these buttons tactile. So anybody who is doing this project, don't forget that buttons need to be tactile, which means when your mouse moves over the button, it should indicate it's clickable by either changing costume, maybe it glows, maybe you change the brightness, maybe you warp it in some way. For me, I'll show you a quick script. This is also on another YouTube video, but we'll do it right now, where you could check to see if it's touching the mouse pointer. Check this out. This is my yellow button. I'm missing something here. I gotta make sure I'm, yeah, definitely. But I also have to have the forever loop. I can't click. There we go. So this script here is great for like constantly checking to see if that button is touching the mouse, or if the mouse is touching the button, I guess is a better way to phrase that. If it is, it'll do the code in the first thing, and if it's not, it'll do the code that's in the second thing. So you can do all sorts of different techniques to make that sort of highlight itself when the mouse goes over so that the user knows you're trying to click it. What would be a good thing here? I don't know. I'll just affect, I'll change the brightness effect. I'll set the brightness effect to, say, 50. If the mouse is touching it, in other words, I'll set it back to 0. Might be a bit much. I'll set it to like 25. So if I press green flag now, the yellow key, I guess it's kind of hard to see with the projector. I guess I'll exaggerate it. On my screen, it looks a little bit better. But you can see how it like glows, right, when the mouse goes over it. Can't really see it too well. I'll put it in the other ones as well. Yeah, it's pretty faint on the projector, but it's a little more noticeable on my screen. So now you can just see, oh yeah, look, my mouse is actually touching those, and I'm ready to click. So there you go. Those are how you make this sort of individual sort of entry keys. The enter key is the next thing. But I see a question. Thank you so much, Mark.
Also, instead of doing like the change like the color effect, could you also have it that like it changes costumes?
Absolutely, yeah. You can switch costumes. I've seen some people doing some sweet Photoshop stuff where you've made custom buttons and then you added like a layer style of like a glow around it or something, so your mouse goes over, it really looks like it's glowing. You know, if you save those as PNGs, that'll work really well because you have the transparency to work with. Don't get too caught up, given that we don't have a huge amount of time left in the project. Don't get too caught up with any particular kind of graphical stuff. Get the code done first. That's really where your evaluation will come from in these projects. But if you got time, then those are nice things to do. And Ethan? Yeah, so again, these are not, it's not what those buttons represent. It's just that they add something. It could be numbers, right? You could have like a keypad, like when you pay with a debit card. You know, you type in your PIN number. Yeah, it could be symbols of ancient Greek letters, and they're like stones that you're pushing on. It's like an Indiana Jones kind of temple thing. I don't know. Like you could do whatever you want with them for sure. And I'm just adding these letters, but it's not really important what it is we're adding. It's just as long as they're distinct. Good questions. Any last question before we go on? Thank you so much. Filling me with the energy. I appreciate it. Next thing is we gotta make the enter key work. All the magic really happens in the enter key. And you should have some kind of key that's gonna be like, you press, OK or go or enter, so that it checks to see at that point, did you enter the code in the right order? This is where all the work will really be done. So the enter key, I'll show you what that looks like. Just at least an example of it. So I'm going to use, again, when this sprite is clicked. And what I'm going to do is just check to see if the code is in the right order that the person typed in. So let's make a code right now. Give me three color code based on those colors. Just yell it out. Ivan.
Yellow, red, blue, green.
That's 4, but I'll go yellow, red, green. I think we're the yellow, red, green. So that's going to be our code. So then my enter button has to check to see if the first thing is yellow, the second thing is green, and the third thing is red. Yellow. Oh wait, I got it wrong. It's yellow, red, green. So yellow's first, then red, then green. So I need to check that out. And this is how you would do that. Check out this piece of code. Item 1 of code. This thing right here. This allows you to inspect what is the first item in the list. And you can type in a different number here. You can type in 2 to see what the second thing in the list is, and 3, and so on. And you can combine this with operators to make a nice little statement. So for example, I can use the equals operator and check to see if the first thing in the list is, what was it, yellow, red, green? So Y.
Why is your operator thing so light?
I don't know. It's the projector. And your screens are all different a little bit. Anyways, as long as you can find operator, it's good. So see how that works? This would check to see if the first item is Y. And you can double click on these, by the way, while you're testing. I can double click and be like, hey, is that true? It says false. Why is that? Oh, because the first thing is R. See how that works, everybody? So I can then chain these together. I can duplicate it. It was yellow, red, green, right? So if I wanted to check if the second thing is red, I'm going to make that a 2, and I'm going to make this R. And there's a last one. I'm going to check if item 3 is it green? Yellow, red, green? I think it was green.
Yellow, red, green.
Thanks, Ivan. So there we go. These are the kind of 3 bits of code we need to do. So how do you do all of them at once? You can stitch them together with ands. So and is allowing you to check to see if 2 things are equal. And you can have 2 and blocks to check if 3 things are equal. I'll show you. Here's the and block. I want to make sure that all 3 of these things are equal, right? Or sorry, are true. So I'm going to have an and watch this. If I duplicate an and, I can stick an and in my and I get 3 slots. And you can keep doing this forever. I've seen people make enormous, blocks that end up being like so thick and like take up like half the screen when people get ambitious. But for now, like I only need this many. So I'm just going to stick that in the first one. This will go beyond the screen. I'm afraid we won't be able to see the whole thing at once. But see how I'm just stitching these together? So there's these. I tried. I think I can zoom out. Yeah, I got to zoom out. Can't do it in full zoom. So I just stitched together those 3 questions. No. Okay. Hey, there we go. So now if I zoom in, we can see that I'm checking the first item is Y, and the second item is R, and the third item is G. It's just off the screen. So that piece of code there, that needs to get put into an if statement. That's a question to ask. The if block will ask that question. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the question. I'm going to have an if that's true, then we'll do something. So if you entered the right code, something needs to happen. And you can decide what that's going to be. If you want that to be a broadcast, maybe you broadcast something and something receives it and suddenly shows up. That would be great. If you wanted to open the safe, maybe a costume will change and you'll broadcast and something will even show and then the key is right in the safe right there. Broadcast works really well. If you wanted to sort of make something in the world change, that's a little bit more complicated. I invite you to come and ask me about that. If you want to just enter the code, press enter, and it just says, ding, and you got the answer right, but you don't know what changed in the world, that would require a variable. So if that's something you want to try out, just let me know. Otherwise, I would just use broadcast. So we've done broadcasts. That's kind of part of the theme of this project. Here they are. Wait, no, this actually was events. So you can broadcast something, and that thing can receive it. I'm going to make the cat receive it. The cat's going to be hidden at the beginning of the game. When it receives the message, it's going to suddenly show up so that I can pick it up. And that's something I think we can do pretty easily. I will make it hide, and if it receives it, it will show. When I receive message 1, there we go. There's one last thing though, and that is you have to clear the list. So anytime I press enter or the game starts, I gotta wipe out the what's in the code list. Otherwise, I can never guess again. Once I guess wrong, if I can't clear out items 1, 2, and 3, and any other items I type in, that's not good. That's a bad situation because then those are locked in as my choices. So how do you delete everything in your list? You might already know this from your inventory, but just in case you don't know or you forgot, there is a delete. It's a bit confusing because it says delete 1 of code, and you're like, well, how do I delete all of them? Well, there's a drop-down list, and you can just choose all. So what I do is I just make it delete all when I press the green flag, and I delete all every time I press enter as well. So if I get it right or wrong, I just delete what's inside. So we got, actually I'll just duplicate it. So I may or may not broadcast the message depending on what was the correct order of things, but I will definitely delete everything that's in code. So I'll press green flag. Here we go. I'm gonna type in, what was it again? Yellow, red, green, right? I'll get it wrong just to see. I'll get yellow, red, blue. I'll press enter. And this is a great place to put in sound effects, by the way. A good eh. I think we did that in the demo originally. I recorded some sound effects. Oh, what a loss to YouTube to not have those sound effects recorded. That's okay. We'll press enter. Hey, nothing happened. But it did clear the list so that I'm ready to type in something else. Should give you some sort of feedback, auditory or visual. Could give you a red X, the enter key could flash red or something. Lots of possibilities. But if I do yellow, red, green, and press enter, it should see that the first is yellow, the second is red, the third is green, and then do that broadcast. And sure enough, it broadcasts. There's the cat, and then I could, if that was an item that I need to pick up, I don't know why I need a cat. Interesting escape the room project where maybe you got to get the cat to go into the air duct, and you tie like a message to its collar, and then it crawls through, and then it gets you. I don't know. You guys can come up with your own crazy idea. So that's the idea. Again, do you have to have the code shown? Absolutely not. Watch this. I press the check mark. This project works just as well, without it. The person doesn't know what they've entered exactly, but that's common in a lot of, your password, you don't know what it was. You can see how many you've done, I suppose, but usually they just have stars or dots or whatever, so you can't see what's going on. So there it is. That's the code puzzle. And if you want to do some variation on that, that's a great way to get quality marks. So if you do, say you do this, you're like, oh, I'm going to put in a red, yellow, green, blue puzzle with an enter key that totally hits criteria. It shows that you understand how to do it. Is it high quality? Well, it depends. If you want to add some additional interesting things in there, you could get quality marks for kind of spicing up this code puzzle. If it's not interesting to you, if you don't want to spice it up, you don't have to. But remember, quality is all about finding the parts of the project in terms of programming that are interesting and adding on to those, doing more. So, for example, some people are doing more buttons, more elaborate puzzles. That's cool. That shows that you're extending it. You're not just sort of duplicating it exactly. Some people are putting in, when you press enter, it plays a little ding, ding, ding sound, and then you don't see what changed. Something in the world changed, you don't know what, so you have to still explore. Awesome, that's like additional programming that's interesting to do. Some people are not doing, buttons in the traditional sense. Maybe they're levers that you're pressing, and there's a costume element to it. There's various interesting things that people are trying out. I know one person in the other class, the other IT class, they've already done their Scratch unit. They had this cool sort of combination lock. Have like a combination lock type of thing. But there was 3 dials, and you had to sort of set the dials to the right number. So when you click it, it would actually rotate the costume, and you'd get like the number in the right place. That was pretty cool way to do it. They ended up using, instead of a list, just like checking the angle of each of the sprites that rotated around. And so once they had the knob sort of rotated in the right place, then they could, win. So adding in some creativity to this is a great way to get quality marks. And again, it's not the only place to get quality marks, so feel free to spend your time as you wish. I will stop this video now. Thank you so much.